And I think Michaela looked a bit confused when you talked about the Fika
Yeah, I don't know
concept.
what that Fika concept is because in Italian it means something very bad. So you better explain
No.
yourself what Fika is as a
Oh
concept.
no, Fika, please leave the podcast right now. So
Una and I can continue here. It's fine.
exactly. And
Welcome, everybody, to a new exciting episode of the Connected by Language podcast, the only show that finds the most dedicated language learners out there and tries to learn from their craft. I'm your host, Michele, and I'm joined by my co host.
Michelle.
So, for the people that have joining in for the first time, I think it would be nice to give a little bit of an introduction about ourselves, what we're about, and what languages do we speak.
Yeah, so I am Michelle from Germany. I speak German, English, French, and Spanish. And I work as a language education specialist at Tandem.
Ooh, and what is Tandem?
Tandem is a language exchange app where you can talk to people from all over the world, either in one-on-one chats or in group live experiences, which we call language parties.
Ah, yes, I've been using Tandem a lot myself too. In fact, at this time of recording, I'm very close to doing my first ever exam of Japanese, thanks to the help of some Japanese partners on Tandem. And hopefully it goes well. I will have a note on the screen to say if I passed it or not, but hopefully it will be great. But I had such a lovely time even talking to people about culture, even in a more casual style. So it's a fantastic way to start learning languages and also to fall in love with them. And in fact, this is also going to be the theme of our episode today. A lot of people have different reasons to fall in love with certain languages. Like, for example, why did you start to doing like Spanish in the first place?
Oh, yeah, it was definitely the culture and the music.
Yeah. Some people have some different ideas. I've needed to learn French for work. But sometimes this sort of love for languages can create some very interesting combination. So today, we're going to combine two languages that are from the same continent, from Europe, but from very different backgrounds. In fact, we're going to combine the very rich language of Serbian from the Balkan region with a Nordic country language.
Wow.
I'm not going to spoil exactly what's going to happen. I think our guest will speak for itself. So, welcome to the show, Una.
hey.
Hi. Welcome
Nice
to
to
the
see
tour.
you.
Yes, I'm very excited to know about your very interesting and frankly very unique language journey. And I'm sorry, I cannot contain myself. But maybe before we jump into the details of this language, maybe you can tell us a bit about your personal journey and what you're all about.
Of course. So my name is Una, as you have introduced me, and I am from Serbia, but I am actually a Swedish and English teacher. So quite a combination for sure. And I mostly work online. I graduated from Faculty of Philology in Belgrade, and my major was Swedish. So it's been a passion of mine for quite a few years, almost 10 years since I started my studying journey with Swedish. So yeah, and I really like languages, of course. So I'm always trying to learn something new about culture, about some other languages, like, I don't know, Korean, French, whatever there is. So I'm always in it.
And I mean, this is the beauty of languages. Like, you can either focus yourself on learning one entire culture ins and out, but also you can kind of pick up from everywhere in the world. There's so many variations, so many different places to explore. But I want to talk to you about your upbringing because, like, you are from, like, were you like growing up in Belgrade or were you growing up somewhere else?
No, so I was only studying in Belgrade. And I grew up in a small town called Nova Varoš, which is in western Serbia, kind of like a mountain region, a little bit secluded, not that many people living here. So I kind of had my first contact, which is kind of crazy, in this small town with other languages, but mostly I would say with English or German, even through satellite TV and stuff like that. So that was very cool.
So yeah, because like if you go to Belgrade, I visited Belgrade not too long ago, you can definitely see that multicultural, multiple languages every day. Everybody speaks English perfectly. They know all different variants of other Balkan like languages and all over like they knew all of the different types of languages. But like in a little town in the kind of, I don't want to say in the middle of nowhere, but like very far off from this epicenter, like how did that environment shape your relationship with languages growing up?
I would say it's interesting because maybe I was quite lucky to have parents who are both engineers, but they also like languages. So you would think that having two of them, they would push me into like liking math or physics or something like that. But my dad was really passionate about English. He really liked English. So I was kind of stealing glances at his study books, at his Mariah Carey CDs, and so on. And of course, the inevitable satellite TV, where I didn't even know what SpongeBob was in Serbian, like what was his name, until I was maybe 11 or 12. So I think I got lucky simply because of that. And there are, of course, not many people here who back, I don't know, 15 years ago or 20 years ago were speaking English or other languages. So even now, I think English is kind of the only language that we have contact with, but that's just the way it is in the world right now. I-
A combination of Mariah Carey CDs and SpongeBob. That's the dream. That's the dream. I don't know how SpongeBob is called in Serbia because in Italian it's called SpongeBob SquarePants. It doesn't change. I don't know if it changes in other languages.
It does. I only learned actually here at Tandem how it is called in English because I watched it in German when I was young, and it's SpongeBob Schwammkopf.
Okay.
exactly.
And what about in Serbian?
It's Sunđerbob Kockalone.
Kockalone.
Okay.
That's fantastic. I have a lot of very fun fact about the Italian version of SpongeBob. I don't. This could be a different entire episode on its own. So I think we're not gonna go over that too much. But one thing that I know about Serbian as the language is that it kind of has a little bit of a secret advantage compared to a lot of different languages. Like, first of all, before going to this secret, for someone who does not know Serbian at all, like how would you describe the very basics of this language and what makes it interesting?
It's a complicated language, I would say, but it's also very melodic. It's very Slavic, obviously, but it is very melodic. I think that that's why a lot of people enjoy listening, for example, to music in Serbian from other countries in Balkan as well. It has a lot of cases, which is quite famous. We have 8 different cases, which is a nightmare
Oh
sometimes.
God.
Yes. So you will probably see, if you're learning Serbian, going online to see some reels, some TikToks, you're probably going to see people making fun of that and being like, oh, never learn Serbian again. But yeah, we have a lot of cases. We have 3 genders. We have quite a lot of interesting vocabulary. I think we're very rich in idioms, in phrases. I think that's what makes us unique for sure, as well as the specific Slavic sounds like l or sh or ñ and so on. And of course, the main thing is that every letter is pronounced the way it is written, which is very important. So once you learn the alphabet of Serbian, you will know how to read everything. So no hidden agendas there.
Ooh, that sounds really good.
Y-
Yeah. And I actually also heard that it has a big advantage to know a Serbian for learning other languages. Is that true?
I think the melody helps, as well as the one letter being pronounced the way it is written thing, because I feel like we don't complicate things. We try to make them simpler as they are. But I definitely feel the melody, and maybe even the fact that Serbian is so hard makes learning other languages quite easy, I would say. It's like, oh, no cases, 1 gender, 2 genders, that's nothing. Verbs not changing through different, persons, piece of cake. So after you survive Serbian, you can survive basically anything, I would say.
One other thing that was very impressive when I visited Belgrade is also their ability to kind of mimic a lot of pronunciations very easily. Because if I remember correctly, the every single sound that is used in other different languages like it could be as complicated as like French or Arabic, technically has a translation into the alphabet in Serbian, and that gives a lot of advantage when you try to replicate their pronunciation. This is what I noticed, and I wanted to more ask you if this is sort of a true thing or it's something that is a little bit nicher.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So, because Serbian is so unique in its pronunciation, we have to transcribe everything into Serbian. So, we have to find the most similar pronunciation or most similar form of a name or a word and so on. So, for example, if you're reading a book in Serbian, if there is a name Jane, it's not going to be, Jane, right? It's going to be written literally in Serbian the way it's pronounced. So we kind of try to find the closest thing to that. And I think that maybe that's why shadowing technique really works well for Serbian people in languages, like hearing and then replicating. It's a really good thing.
So if I was about to read Harry Potter in Serbian, how would the name look like?
Yes, yeah, exactly. So for example, Hermione would be Hermiona, for example. Or I don't know, if it's George, it's literally gonna be written with like the J sound in Serbian with the J letter. So yeah, quite unique. But it also makes it so easy to read books and you're like, huh, I know how to pronounce this name so easy.
Nice.
And there are other languages that try to do something similar to this, but aren't as one-to-one. For example, Japanese and their old katakana system, where they take English words and they kind of try to put it in their own, like, different script. But 9 times out of 10, the sound are recognizable for sure, but they aren't like 100% the original pronunciation. And I think that's what Serbian makes it stand across other languages, because their shadowing techniques, they are very close to the original. Even when I was talking in Italian to people, except maybe for the concept of double consonants, which is something that it doesn't appear in Serbian. But like when it comes to the sound of the vowels and accents, I think it was one-to-one, even for someone that has basically no experience learning Italian. So it's something that I think a lot of Balkan countries, especially Serbian, do have a very, very big advantage on.
Absolutely. I agree. Thank you for the compliment. I will take it for the whole nation.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear.
Okay, so we have talked about Serbian quite a lot now, and we have teased in the beginning that you are all about teaching Swedish. So why Swedish? How did you get in touch with it?
The most difficult question of them all. So I would say, knew that I was gonna study languages quite early on. So from elementary school, I knew I was gonna be an language teacher, and that was set in stone. Yeah. So when I was in high school, I was kind of playing with the idea of studying Italian, actually, and not Swedish, because I liked Italian music, of course.
Yeah, good. I'm gonna tell you very straight up. I'm very happy that you didn't pursue Italian as a language. I keep telling everybody, why? Why do you guys learn Italian? If you guys want to learn a Latin language, go to France. I don't know. It's much, much more useful and more lucrative. But I appreciate it a lot. I appreciate that Italian culture has resonated with you, of course.
Of course. So I almost made it to Berlin. It was kind of my second choice in case I didn't study Swedish. But back in 2013, I visited Sweden for the first time. I went to Malmö, and I really liked just the culture, the atmosphere that they have. And then a few years later, it was late 2015, I think, I heard an amazing song. As you can tell, I really like music, so I get influenced by music quite a lot. I heard an amazing song which was called Ta mig tillbaka by this Swedish singer called Darin. And I was like, oh my God, I want to know what he's talking about. Like, I want to go deep in that lyrics and find everything about that. And so when I was supposed to be choosing which language I want, I was like, I'm going to shoot for Swedish. I'm going to try and see if it works. And spoiler alert, it did. So I did get to study Swedish at university, and I still really like it. I think it's a really melodic, wonderful language. So I don't regret choosing it for sure.
It's interesting because whenever in the world of music, whenever you think about Swedish music, people usually think of Swedish songwriters that were very popular in like American music. You have like Max Martin, or you can have ABBA that sing in English. You are the kind of like the exception because you went from songs in Swedish that are in Swedish, which is interesting because like, for example, in Eurovision, like 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 10, they never send a song in Swedish. They send songs in English. So it's very interesting to see. It's like, oh, wait a minute. I guess there are pop songs or like songs in Swedish that are actually in the language, at least for the rest of the
Exactly.
world. So
Exactly.
it's very interesting to know. But so you went to the world of Swedish thanks to music, but learning a language isn't as easy as just waltzing in and be like, I want to learn Swedish. So can you tell us briefly about the very basic of the way that the Swedish language works?
Of course. So, like I said, because I survived Serbian, thankfully, now Swedish is a piece of cake.
Okay.
Jokes aside, of course, every language is difficult in some aspect. So, Swedish, I would say, in grammar, is surprisingly quite easy. It is very void of cases, void of genders, void of anything that's kind of gendered or oriented towards one person, I would say. So if you learn one verb in Swedish, like, I don't know, pratar, which means to talk, it's going to be the same for everyone. For me, for you, for them, for my cat, it doesn't matter. So they're all going to use the same verb. There are no specific endings, nothing at all. So I think that's kind of what I use to lure people into Swedish. I'm like, guys, if you learn one verb, you know everything basically. So of course there are some other aspects of it. Like I said, it's not gendered, but it does have remainance of some gendered, let's say, situations from the past. It has some remainance of cases, but in general, I would say grammar is quite okay, quite all right to master. However, the pronunciation is a little bit different. So, of course, because it's a in family of German languages, right? So it has umlauts, which is the or, and so on. Now that's where the trouble is, basically. But yeah, I would say grammar is quite all right.
Yeah, this entire same strategy actually worked on me in a very different example of like, oh, the grammar is so easy, you can get it very quickly, was for Chinese actually in universities. They told me, oh, like you can come to Chinese is very easy. The grammar is very easy. It's like the same one as like there's no genders, there's no cases, every word is exactly what it means. But then you look at it once and like, wait a minute, I think you trapped me somewhere. I don't know. Like there's a big elephant in the room that needs to be addressed. Okay, there's a big one, which is the alphabet. But that's Chinese. But I'm actually interested to knowing, like, you said that there are remnants of cases, remnants of gender. What exactly does that mean? Because I'm not 100% clear on what that is like.
So back in the days, I'm not gonna try to say which exact century, but Swedish had, for example, three genders. So there was female, male, and the neutrum, right? And then over history, over the case of history, they kind of decided to put the female and male into one, and they made something called utrum, and then we have utrum and neutrum. So however, in Swedish they don't really see that as a gender. So I wouldn't say like, oh, in Serbian, for example, if I take a bottle of water, that's flasha, and that's she. So I'm gonna say literally she is, for example. But in Swedish there is no such thing. However, they do have something called ett and en article, which is basically that every single noun in Swedish has to be en or et. Now, what is the trouble with that? In theory, it's supposed to be logical, like en is supposed to be this male female fusion, and et was supposed to be this neutrum fusion. However, it's just guessing and just learning by heart. So everyone is like, please, how do I know instinctively, intuitively, if the word bottle, flaska, is gonna be en or et? I'm like, I have horrible news for you. You cannot. So we kind of have to, when we learn Swedish, we have to learn for every noun if it's n or et. So that's why if you crack open any dictionary in Swedish, every word is going to have that with it. So it's going to say n or et with it. Otherwise, you're never going to know. So that's the remainant of the gender. And the remainant of the case is just similar to English, like accusative. For example, like saying, I see you, you see me. It's not you see I, right? So it's the similar in Swedish, for example. So they have also object cases, but that is about it for that.
You did light up when you heard something. Is there something that reminded you of German, of other languages?
Absolutely, yes. Because we have to learn by heart too which article goes with which noun. So there are some rules where you can like see if it's female, male, or neutral noun, but yeah, they do not apply to all the nouns. So yes, I know that struggle. I mean, from my students only, because fortunately I could learn it as when I was a child, and I just know by now. But everybody who's learning German, yeah, they have the same issue.
Yeah, it's every time that I talk about people that are learning German, always the same story. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know which gender it is. I don't know how to remember it. How can people remember it by heart? It's so annoying. But I mean, a lot of languages follow these rules. So
Yeah.
does Serbian have the same issue of like some genders you just have to learn them by heart?
Everything in Serbian is gendered. It's like the things you can't imagine being gendered. Serbian is like, yes, we will make this a she, actually. So honestly, I feel like you can guess. If there is a word that ends with a certain vowel, for example, maybe we can guess that it's female or something like that. But a lot of times, I feel like for foreigners, they do have to actually, sit down and write it down.
Oh, isn't it so beautiful in the Romance languages that you can really have these rules? It's male, it's female, and
I'm trying to find like exceptions, but my limited brain does not allow me to find an exception that in Italy would be like, oh, that seems like a feminine word. Oops, no, it's English. But there are definitely exceptions. It's not that easy.
they
It's like,
are.
oh, it ends with an A. It means that it's 100% going to be a female. But I do admit that in hindsight, it is definitely a little bit more consistent and
Yeah,
there's like more agency to guess. Like if you say
absolutely.
bottiglia, it's like, oh, that sounds like a feminine word. And
Yeah,
8 times out of 10 it is. So
yeah.
you don't have to worry about that too much.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are exceptions. But is there actually, when you started learning Swedish, was there something that felt particularly easy for you because you already knew Serbian and Spanish and English? Sorry, my mind was still on Spanish from before.
I wish I knew.
And the other part of the question is also, or was there something that was completely alien to you, like super weird?
I would say because I knew English, grammar was quite easy. In Serbian, for example, we don't have present perfect. That does not exist. But in Swedish and in English, yes. So it was easier to accept some grammar parts, I would say, for sure, like tenses and plurals, passive, conditionals, all of that almost has the exact same form as it does in English. Serbian sometimes also helps with grammar. I have to be honest. It's surprising, but it really does. But what was really alien, the rhythm, the melody of the language. I think Serbian and English, even now when I speak quite, in one line, kind of. And Swedish is just all over the place. So I think that was really hard to accept and to get used to that, as well as the umlauts that I mentioned earlier. So that was really fun, just trying to put my mouth in a particular position to pronounce these vowels.
And you were telling us before that if you use the Serbian script, that you can kind of shadow other languages. Doesn't it work with the umlauts?
Yes, we do have actually official transcription for umlauts in Serbian as well. For example, is going to be kind of in Serbian, so we say Malme instead of Malmö. right?
Okay. Yeah.
However, it's not obviously 100% accurate. It's a little bit hard sometimes to find the exact same replica, but it does help with pronunciation. I wouldn't say it was the hardest thing for me. I think it was honestly just the rhythm, and umlauts came with, exercise, I would say.
And how did you train yourself to kind of like combat this intonation and musicality issue, and as well then transfer this knowledge to your student to kind of like feel the melody rather than just like mimicking the sounds?
For sure. I used to have imaginary interviews in my dorm room with myself in Swedish. And it really helped me practice the rhythm of the language. Of course, being surrounded by Swedish would have helped me much more if I was, studying in Sweden and not in Serbia. But I feel like I really help my students to start thinking about the melody from the beginning. A lot of people say, oh, it's not important. I just want to learn how to say, oh, my name is, I want to communicate. But it is important because it just sounds robotic if you don't pay attention to it. So we try to really pay attention to the melody, to the intonation, the rhythm, the pronunciation, basically from the very first class.
Yeah. I mean, again and again, the most important things when it comes to learning languages is having somebody that can also help you out, because you were alone doing these interviews, which, hey, I mean, at least you get some experience to running your own podcast, you know? But we're going to talk about content creation in a while. But it's also interesting because like maybe at the very beginning, there weren't a lot of ways to get in contact with people that knew the language. Nowadays, there's tons of places where you can find either courses, or you can even find people on Tandem, for example, that know Swedish, so you can practice your own interviewing skills directly with someone from Sweden. And I think that's something that, especially nowadays, it is doing such a good job at helping people kind of break that beginner wall, or there's a different word for it, of like barriers of entry. Like you destroy the barriers of entries because there's so many different ways to kind of directly get into the real nucleus of the language. I don't know. I went to like 6 different directions. Never mind. Sorry. But
I completely understand.
okay, fantastic. So I don't have to redo that line. But it's interesting because like this has been so far a lot about the uh like the construct and the like the objective way to speak Swedish, but it is an entire different part of Swedish that can be interesting to learn, and it's more about communication styles. So I wanted to ask you, as someone that has a lot of experience now talking in two very different countries, I would assume at least, like what were the most surprising culture shocks when learning Swedish? Both, I mean, you said already grammatic, we already went there, but also about the communication styles.
Absolutely. So I think, especially because I speak Serbian, which is a very polite, very formal language. Of course, depending on who you're talking to, Swedish was a very big jump for me in feeling comfortable because everyone is a friend when you're speaking Swedish. Like, oh, this 80-year-old grandma, hello, hello, Maria. I'm like, I cannot say that to an 80-year-old grandma, actually. I need to say, like, hello, madam, how are you? No. So, Swedish, very informal. It's a very informal, I would say, culture, which reflects also on the language, obviously. So I can also give you like a little rundown historically regarding that. So back in the days, Swedish and Sweden in general, of course, had hierarchy, right? So they had certain polite way of addressing people, and then they were like, we want everyone to be equal, right, in society. And so they decided to ditch that. And they were like, let's just say you to everyone. In English, this makes no sense now, I realize, as I'm talking, but
Yeah, there's no
you
formal and
is
informal
really
you.
exactly, exactly. But I'm sure that people who are watching this also know other languages, so they will get what I'm trying to convey here. But yeah, they decided to ditch formality and to really enforce informal way of talking in general. So instead of saying good morning, I don't know, hello in some super formal way to your boss, they're gonna be like, "Hey, Eric, like, how are you?" Or like, "Oh, see you tomorrow, Eric." So when I was talking to my Swedish teachers who were from Sweden, obviously, and when they told me, "Stop addressing me as like respected professor, please send me the document." Just tell me like, "Hey, Eric, send me the document." I was like, I cannot do that. I will actually explode on the spot if I send an email with that content. So yeah, I think it's a very big shock for all of those who come from different countries where there is some sort of formality to come to such country where everyone is a friend, so everyone is informal and everyone is on hey greetings basically. So
And
yeah,
how do you do it now that you teach Swedish? Like, are you the same? Do you tell your students, so please use the informal way?
absolutely.
So you get
The
used to
teacher
it.
became the master now, so I do the same. Definitely do the same. I don't feel bad about it, probably because it's been almost 10 years since I've been forced, with shaking hands to write, "Hey, Eric, please send me the documents." But I feel like because also maybe because most of my students are similar to me in age, and so but I do have some older ones, and I also told them, please, let's just keep it informal. We are friends here. Let's just be, hey, hey, how are you? So there is no formality in my classes.
It's interesting. I want to kind of reel back to the a little mistake that you had about like that you talked about Spanish, because there's a connection about this sort of informal way. This is a very deep cut. For our second episode, we talked about Mexican Spanish, and the thing about Mexican Spanish is that it has the same exact difference compared to like the original European Spanish, where everybody has their own. It's the same level. There's no formal version of Mexican Spanish, so they also adapted this everybody's equal mentality, and you can definitely show it when you do talk to people from that place where they keep everything is a lot more friendly, everything is a lot more close and a little bit more like personal. There's not a lot of separation of hierarchy, so it's very interesting to see that like such different countries, Sweden, pretty like Nordic, cold, has the same exact setup as the Central American Mexican Spanish. So hey, if you wanted to learn Spanish, maybe this is a great way to do it. You can do the Mexican way, so you don't have to learn two different methods of speaking.
You're proving the name of the podcast
Yes,
perfectly, I would say,
yes,
with this.
yes. Thank you. Somebody finally understands.
Yes. So when you visit Sweden or you speak in Swedish, what are some moments where the language kind of suddenly unlocks a deeper part of culture for you?
I would say people really appreciate when you speak Swedish in Sweden. So they really like to hear it, even though it may not be perfect or you're still working on your melody, your intonation. They really like it. And so it feels friendlier for some reason, feels less formal in general. And people are more likely to just chit chat with you about, I don't know, if you're walking your dog or if you're drinking your coffee, or you have heard about the infamous Fika concept there. So it's definitely, it's just more natural, I would say. Of course, Swedish people very known for knowing English. They speak credible English. So if you go to Sweden, you will never have a problem with that. But if you speak Swedish, it just feels cozier, which is a concept they're all about. So I think that kind of makes a good definition of it, something that is cozy and personal and just more informal and friendlier, I would say.
And I think Michaela looked a bit confused when you talked
Y-
about the Fika
Yeah, I don't know
concept.
what a Fika concept is, because in Italian it means something very bad. So you
I
better explain
know.
yourself what Fika is as a
Don't
concept.
know Fika? Please leave the podcast right now. So,
Una and I can continue here. It's fine.
exactly, I'm the new
I
host.
leave. No, I'm joking. Please teach me. I'm here to get connected to languages, and this is the
Of
best way to do
course.
it.
Of course. So fika is the concept of taking a little break during your workday, usually with your colleagues or with your friends, to have a little sip of coffee or tea or hot chocolate with some snacks, usually something sweet like a cinnamon bun or I don't know, like a saffron bun and stuff like that. And they love it. So if you ask a Swedish person, like, how many fikas should we have a day? They're going to be like, at least two. Like, do not talk to me if there is a day without fika. So I would say that's something that you really should experience if you go to Sweden. Just having a little break, drinking your coffee, and eating your cinnamon roll. That's what being Swedish is all about.
That's very nice. And how did you know about this concept, Michelle?
Actually, because I did a crash course in Swedish once
Okay.
for 1 week. And after that, only after that, I realized that if you go to a IKEA store, there is a little section that has written the letters Fika on it. And there you get the little sweets and like you can take a break from shopping furniture. So you can have it internationally exported to other countries if you go to an IKEA store.
I never noticed it about this. I live very close to an IKEA where I live right now in Berlin, so I could definitely go and find this room, this secret room for myself. Because I don't think a lot of people in Germany knows what a fika is anyway.
No.
And if you ask an Italian, they would be horrified. So I'm not gonna say what it means, by the way, and I will not put it on screen. You do your own research if you're an adult. If you're a kid, don't do that. But so it's so yeah, I will do my mission and I will report back if I can find it.
Work for next time.
Yeah, it's homework. Thank you. It's the homework for next lesson. So, okay, so Swedish seems like a very fun language to learn. And I think people that maybe stumble across this video maybe are going to be interested in learning the language. So if someone wanted to start Swedish, like what concrete steps or technique would you recommend based on your own journey?
So there is a tiny problem, I would say, with Swedish and learning on your own, for example, and that is that most books are in Swedish. So you're kind of like reading instructions in Swedish, and you're like, I don't know what that says actually. So I would say it's a little bit difficult when you're doing it yourself. So I would recommend maybe starting with someone, with a teacher or a tutor, just, in the beginning if you need it. One thing that I would really focus on is pronunciation and learning the pronunciation rules in Swedish. There are about 7 or 8 rules. And for example, for my students, do them in first 2 classes. And I tell them, once you master this, we can continue. Because you're going to keep making mistakes. Sometimes they are silly mistakes. Sometimes they're like different meaning that's not so good. And you end up saying I love to eat glass instead of I like to eat ice cream, for example. And people are like, I don't think that's right, actually. So I would say pronunciation rules, definitely. I would also say, of course, like with any language, to try and find something in Swedish that you like. If you like podcasts, find a podcast in Swedish that you like. If you like YouTube videos, you like makeup, you like cooking, let's find you at least one channel that does that so you can be surrounded by language. You love rock music, let's find you recommendations for rock music in Swedish. There is, surprisingly.
I would assume so. They have a lot of bangers. Like Sweden is very known for a lot of very good music. So I would assume that they have kind of like their toes into every genre.
Absolutely. There is everything for everyone. So from hip hop to any sort of like folk music, even whatever you want. So I would say definitely find something that you like. And of course, be consistent. And I would also recommend to use the dictionary. So I mentioned in the beginning about the and et words, plurals, and so on. So dictionary in the beginning for the rest of your life kind of is going to be your best friend in Swedish. So never, I always say that to my student, just don't stress and try to be like, oh my God, I can't remember if this is n or this is et or this is plural. Just check. We are in, modern era. Dictionaries are now online as well. Of course, physical copy is great, but we can check everything. So approaching the language, relaxed and with the sense like, hey, I can find a solution to everything. It's gonna be okay, is also, a mindset that we should adapt when we start. So I would definitely say all of that, but really in the beginning, pronunciation rules super important, and the basics of grammar as well, and just surrounding yourself with as much as Swedish as you can if you are not already there, of course.
I want to add a little bit of a very niche Michele fun fact slash lore about specifically grammar books, because this is the only time in my lifetime that I will ever get to talk about this. So recently, my family started digging stuff that our ancestor did, and we found out that one of our old ancestor was a writer, or like he was doing a lot of books in the early 1800s or something, I think. And we found out that you mentioned that, oh, all of the grammar books are in Swedish. Well, you're wrong, because one of my ancestors did one of the first Swedish grammar books in Italian, but old Italian. So it doesn't even make sense.
So we need to learn Italian basically first.
Basically, yeah. If you're interested in learning old Italian books for a decrepit version of a Swedish grammar book that is completely outdated at this point, because most of the text is basically unreadable because it's not in modern Italian. Yeah, you can. It's so it's it's the most out there fun fact, and I really wanted to say it, even though it doesn't not like fit in that well in the episode, but I wanted to share it because it's
That's crazy.
It's time in my lifetime that I will get to talk about this, because I don't know anybody else in my entire family that was even remotely interested in Sweden. So
You have to carry on the legacy. That has to be your next step, I think.
okay, I'm gonna add an extra fun fact on that. I did technically kind of I did have a Swedish obsession with the YouTubers. I forced my family to go to Sweden because I loved a lot of Swedish YouTubers, and it was very funny because I was like 12. So it was like the people were like, "Oh, where do you want to go for like vacation? Oh, you want to go to Disneyland? Oh, you want to go to like the beach? I want to go to Sweden." And everybody's like, "What? What the hell are you talking about?"
Did you do it yet?
Yes, I did I just went to Stockholm, not that far off. I really liked it, except Pizza Hut. I had Pizza Hut there, and it was terrible.
Oh,
But it's not Swedish, so I don't.
poor 12-year-old Michele.
Yeah, it's the first time that I tried Italian food in a foreign land, so it was not good. But yeah,
It's a touchy subject, I would say.
yes, unfortunately, the
Sweden.
stereotypes are real from my side about that side of the food, but also it's my fault for choosing it. But again, I'm digressing. But yes, I did went to Sweden once, and I really liked it. Taking boats as a bus, that's cool. That's very cool. I never done it before, and it was awesome. So, and I went to a theme park, completely unrelated, but it was really fun. So, so maybe I should relearn Swedish. Maybe I should just sit down, find a tutor, book some lessons.
I know somebody,
Yes.
for example. So let's talk
I'm
a bit
here.
about how you are teaching, what your teaching day looks like. So you are teaching 100% online now. How was the transition for you? And
Oh.
let's do that
Technical
again.
difficulties in the connected by language. I'm gonna keep that in.
That's fine. Yeah, how did that transition happen for you? And yeah, how is it now for you teaching online 100%?
It was interesting. Of course, you can guess when it started being 100% online. So during the COVID period. Before that, of course, I was before that a student, but I was still working in a few private schools, or I was volunteering in some institutions as English and Swedish teacher. And then when obviously COVID came, then I transitioned completely online. Now I cannot imagine myself teaching Swedish in person. Actually, I would like to try it again, but it seems so unreal because I have so much material, so many resources, so many things on this little laptop here that I just cannot imagine not being able to say, "Oh, let me share my screen with you guys. Let's look at this." But yeah, online is really cool. Of course, first of all, because I am connected to people from all over the world. So, of course, even in Serbia, it's like, oh, what if I was teaching in person? I would just be teaching people in Nova Varoš. Do you think anyone knows Swedish here? No, absolutely no one. So, yeah, so I get to work with a lot of people from all over Serbia, of course, and the Balkan region. We work all day, in the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon, because it's online. It gets to be mega flexible, of course. It gets to be different duration, gets to be on different topics. Sometimes it's a typical course, sometimes it's a conversational course, sometimes it's preparing students for exams at university, for licenses, preparing interviews. So it really unlocked, online teaching really unlocked a whole new world to me, basically.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that a lot of your students are from the Balkan region, because this is something that I always like to ask people that have this much, like this many connections to a lot of people that you share languages with. Like, how does sharing a native language with your students that are from the Balkan shape the way that you teach Swedish in the first place?
It creates a more personal style in teaching, I would say. So, of course, a lot of concepts that are unknown to them or foreign to them are explained much easier when we share a language, right? And they also feel more comfortable because, like, hey, this person who is from the same or similar country as me, who speaks the same or similar language as me, has actually learned this language. So maybe I can do it as well, of course. So it's a motivation at the same time. And I feel like it's definitely a little bit easier to explain things, to connect, culturally, to say, to laugh about the same things or something that we find weird in Swedish or so on. So we kind of have the same understanding of that concept. It's a really nice thing to be able to help people from your region learn this language.
And you also teach Swedish in English to people from other parts of the world. So, how different does that feel in terms of language juggling, but maybe also how easily you build trust and connection with those people?
Yes, that was a challenge, absolutely. And I'm so happy that I did not have any classes today of teaching Swedish and English, because now I would not be able to talk anymore, I think. Or I would start just talking in Swedish. It can be a little bit difficult juggling, of course, because it's just an insane concept teaching my third language and my second foreign language. So sometimes I'm proud of myself. I'm like, wow, you're actually doing this. But I would say the trust is there. Of course, cultural differences come and go. There are some things that we clash over some views, for example, but it's also a really nice way to connect with people all over the globe and to learn more about their culture and then maybe connect it to mine or Swedish. So I don't know. I was just talking yesterday with my student from Brazil, actually. We were talking about holidays. We were sharing our experiences. She was showing me some candies that they eat there in her city and so on. So it's a really nice thing. And I think even with them, I am able to form a really nice, almost friend like bond because most of my students, that's one of my greatest achievements, I would say. Most of my students come and they stay at least 1 or 2 years, sometimes even longer, studying the language with me. So by the end, some of them are really like my friends, and we are in contact, checking on each other. It's like, oh, a baby came, or oh, you moved apartments, or you got married, and so on. So it's really nice, and doesn't even have to be like from the Balkan region, but also with my students from other countries and other continents, actually. So it's a really cool thing.
Yeah. And you can almost say that they're connected by language. They go
Exactly.
with you to say that. No? Uh, tough crowd.
Exactly.
Tough crowd. But no, it's a very beautiful experience because it's just one of the wonders of of teaching online, being able to just connect with anybody in the world. And it's kind of like what Tandem is also all about, like finding that person that you can share not only like nice lessons in learning a language, but also to share memories and experiences and having that sort of connection that you would not have if like the internet it was not a thing. You would have never found out about these people. You would have never like even remotely communicated with anybody in those areas unless you like really committed to it. And now everything is a lot easier, and you really can give everybody their space and the type of memories that I think everybody should have access to. So it's a very beautiful story. But is there anything else? No. Okay.
I thought so.
So you have, yeah.
It's fine.
If you have some thoughts, you can continue.
No, actually, I just want to continue with the next.
Okay. Then you go.
Okay. So, as a non-native Swedish teacher yourself, like, what do you think is your superpower in understanding your students and also their struggles?
That's a fantastic question, actually. So I think a lot of times people get very obsessed with having a native teacher because they're like, oh, this person was born there. They have been speaking this language from the moment they were born. But also, if you ask my mom to teach you Serbian, she would not be able to. So don't think it works like that. Of course, combination is fantastic. If you have ability to work with both, I would say the biggest superpower, biggest strength is just the fact that I was there where they were once. So sometimes when I'm teaching them something and I say, you will learn this, don't worry, they tell me it's easy for you to say. I'm like, no, it's actually not easy for me to say because I was also learning it from zero, from scratch. Like, I did not learn Swedish as a child, I learned it as an adult. So I know how it is to be stressed and to be frustrated, and I know exactly which parts of grammar or pronunciation or vocabulary might be tricky for different students. And of course, I try to explain it as much as I can to them and to, just make them as comfortable as possible.
Yeah, I do want to add that it also allows you to kind of find a way to cheese some languages as well, like trying to find some things that may sound frustrating, but with some experience with people that had to learn the same kind of quirks, it allows them to kind of find a workaround around it. Like, for example, again, for Japanese, for myself, there are a lot of quirks about how the examinations are made and the way that they kind of what's the traditional way of learning the language. But with time, I did discover, talking to people that know Japanese that are not native from Japan. They told me, oh yeah, but actually you can kind of like cheese your way out of this by kind of like having this sort of mentality here. Like, yeah, I know that the traditional way tells you to do this and this and this and that, but it kind of like it kind of muddles the water with extra information, so you can focus on this, focus on that. And if a Japanese person tells you, no, you have to learn that, you can tell them, shove off. Like, no, I'm joking. I'm not gonna say that, but like they say that first get those parts in because those are the most practical in the short term, and then the other parts are very good for the long term. So they can also kind of find a way to separate what the actual learning required is and what is the extra cherry on top that can make your more complete and authentic experience. And I think there's a difference between the two. You can't just like go through the same motions from all perspectives. It's different. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. I think non-native teachers, they have a lot of tricks up their sleeve. Like a lot of things that sometimes we try to sometimes I just try to make like a funny comparison, or I try to make like a funny anecdote or funny allegory or something like that that will make the students remember that. And I feel like a native teacher probably would not think of that because for them it comes naturally. But for us, we have to find so many different ways to remember things. And so these tricks and tips that a non-native teacher can give you, they can be really golden, I can say.
But all of the superpowers about understanding these sort of things really do help when you're in the moment doing the lesson with them. But what do you recommend for people to do outside of their lessons that you think make the biggest difference for people that are dedicated in learning a language, or like learning Swedish, not necessarily a language?
Speaking, definitely. So sometimes I give them homework. I'm like, you have to go and order coffee in Swedish for your homework. Like, not even a joke. Because, especially for those who are in Sweden, they
Yeah,
should
I was about to
take
ask. It's like
chances, right?
it's like
In
imagine.
Serbia.
Yeah, imagine like you're Brazilian,
Yeah.
like a student going to a Brazilian shop and be like, "Oh, I want to order in Swedish." Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
I got confused for a second. Thank you for clarifying.
No, no, no. That's what role play is for. That's what we do in classes for those who are not in Sweden. But if you are in Sweden, not taking chances and being scared and being like, no, I'm actually just gonna switch to English and ask for a cup of coffee, it's sabotaging yourself, basically. So I definitely think if you are in the target languages country, you should be really trying to immerse yourself and just to try and talk to people, especially in a country like Sweden where people are patient. They're not going to hate on you or they're not going to make fun of you, at least not from my experience. So I think it's really important. It's also really important just to, like I mentioned earlier, between the lessons to find something you like. Because if I'm making you listen to a podcast about literature and you don't like literature, then there is no point in that. But if you like rock music, like I said, or if you really love children's books, or if you really like cooking, then I, as a teacher, am gonna help you find some sort of content, some sort of source for that to be your contact with the language between the classes, of course, minus the homework and studying and everything else in between.
Yeah. It's funny because in my case, I did exactly that for English by copying YouTubers. I would speak alone in my room, just like a YouTuber that I was watching. Like I would watch Pokemon videos and be like talking like the YouTubers, explaining all the Pokemons. And it sounds ridiculous because you're alone and you're speaking like a cartoon character, but trust me, it does wonders. I would suggest people to copy YouTubers. Please copy
Can confirm.
And that actually brings us to our next question about content creation. So, you are also a content creator. It would be super interesting for us, maybe or hopefully also for our audience, to know like how did you first start with this? What was the first thing that really led you to the point that you were saying, okay, I'm going to post about this now?
It's actually perfect timing for that because my Instagram profile is turning 5 this week. So it's been 5 years since that first post, actually, which is crazy now when I think about it. But yeah, so me and my good colleague, my good friend from university, we were kind of playing with the idea of just sharing love for Swedish. Honestly, we didn't really plan on having a super massive career or something like that with it. We were just thinking how there isn't any profile in Serbian that was talking about Swedish. Of course, there are profiles in English, and but we were thinking, okay, but what about people like us? From this area, from this region, who maybe are interested to hear about the language, the culture, the history, literature, whatever. So we kind of decided just one day, okay, let's try doing this, let's try sharing it. And now it's been 5 years and I've learned so much from content creation, of course. From first years when I didn't even share my face on there. I was just like a unknown person, just a silhouette, to now being able to actually build sort of a brand, I can say, online, which is really cool.
and that's fantastic because one of the major advantages of being able to make like content and growing an audience is receiving feedback from said audience about your current teaching styles or your content. So, have there ever been moments, in your opinion, where feedback from your followers clearly improved either your teaching or the way that you should explain something?
Of course. Actually, because of people commenting on my posts, my ideas, I started filming videos or reels in Swedish. So at first, I was only filming in Serbian, of course, because it was targeted towards the Balkan audience. But I have also started, people were like, please, how about you film something in Swedish and then put the Serbian subtitle? I was like, okay, I can try that. And people really liked it. So I kept doing that still, which is really cool. And also, a lot of ideas come from comments, from messages like, hey, can you please explain this in one of your videos? Or hey, please, can you just help me what to do with this? Or what to do with that, or how to say this, or how to say that, or it's really great to just build relationships with people online.
Yeah. And it's just like, because at first a lot of people, because I as a little bit of a side note, I went to an event, like we actually went to an event recently called Expo Lingua, which is like this convention where a lot of different communities of languages, like companies and entrepreneurs come in and they share their love for languages. And I got the ability to talk with a lot of content creators that have been very successful in the space. And one of the things that the language community has that I was really impressed with, because my experience wasn't with the language community for a long time, it was a different type of creators, was how everybody in the community is so welcoming and very eager to share their culture and eager to share what they love. It is very different from what the type of communities that I used to talk with that were definitely a lot more competitive. And it's such a wonderful thing to see how these communities, whether big, like 800,000, a million, 2 million followers, and even much smaller, like despite the fact that there's such a big difference in audience, the overall feeling is always very similar. It's very cozy. It's very Fika.
Exactly.
I think it's very fantastic to see how many different creators can take something as easy, like something not easy, sorry, something as natural as languages, as something as universally recognized, and can turn them into not only a successful online career, but also into a very welcoming and very varied community. And honestly, I'm very, very happy to see all of these creators. And that's why Connected by Language as a show also kind of started to get to know this community in a much more uh, direct way, and it's so glad to see my theory is somewhat correct.
And if there's somebody out there of you who's listening at the moment and who loves languages, who would really actually like to try that and create some content, what are a few things you wish you had known in the beginning, maybe about growth, consistency, and also not burning out, not letting it come very close to you?
I would say one mistake that I made that I mentioned was that I wasn't there with my face. So I wasn't building relationship with people, directly. So I would suggest to actually put yourself out there if you are making content, because people want to know who is talking, who is writing this post, who is explaining them something or sharing something. They want to know your story. Some of my most personal posts, some of my most personal stories about my journey or my family or my influences and so on are some of the most welcomed posts I've made. So I think building a community in the beginning is really important. And also, honestly, just sharing what you're passionate about. Because I think a lot of people might not be necessarily that interested in Swedish poetry or Swedish literature, but I'm still gonna talk about it because I care. I like it. So, I'm gonna take that as an opportunity to share with people, and maybe one of them is gonna think, hey, maybe I can read this book. So I would say to, of course, be consistent, but also to let your inspiration go and to share what you're passionate about. And there are going to be people just as you and who are willing to actually, participate in that content and read and comment and just support you in any way they can. So it's worth it in the end.
Yeah, it's worth it, especially nowadays where there's so many ways to fake content online and not have that sort of authenticity. You have programs where you can click and generate millions and millions of videos without really any care in the world. Having that sort of haven of authentic content, even if it's not the most universally appealing. It's always welcome, I think. I don't know if you all agree with that, but
Absolutely.
yeah. But I think we're actually coming into the last question of the show. So maybe you want to do the honors, Michelle.
Okay, thanks. So, as a final thought here, so if someone listening is thinking about learning Swedish, Serbian, or another language, what is one thing from your journey that you would like them to know, like to think about?
To I feel like I'm gonna repeat myself, but
Maybe more specific, like in times when it gets hard, what could you recommend them to do?
listening to music.
Very, very, very straight to the point.
Exactly.
I thought it was gonna be something more like experience and let your inner passion flow. And oh, listen to music. Okay, right, sure, I can do that.
It really is like that. Every time I feel like I'm struggling. I mean, that is my personality in general. I really like music. I think it's like a safe haven a lot of times for me. But I really think that just it's such a nice way to be in contact with language, to hear the language, to hear the melody, and also to have fun. So during those hard times, I always say that to all students or everyone who's just starting to learn, find someone. There is someone out there just for you musically, and you can connect with them. And it's gonna make your just language journey so much easier because you're always gonna come back to them. You know, maybe I had a rough patch with Swedish, but I was gonna go back and listen to Ta mig tillbaka by Dörr, and I'm gonna be like, oh, yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it. I understand everything, or I want to understand everything by the end. So I really do think it's a nice thing to do.
Wow, listening to music. What a wonderful way to kind of encapsulate an entire language into one word. And I think, yeah, I mean, language is to some kind of like a universal language. With laughter and music and speaking, it's like three different languages that you can put into one place. And I think that's a very powerful way to describe this. So, I think this is a great way also to kind of come into the wraps of this amazing episode of the Connected by Language podcast. Thank you so much, Una, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun, and it was always great making connection about so many languages. We mentioned so many languages in this episode. So really the true definition of the podcast, I can
Ex-
say.
Exactly. Finally, someone understands. Joke, joke. But yeah, thank you so much for joining in. And if you have your current project or your current account, if people want to learn what is their perfect playlist of Swedish songs according to their taste, where they can find you on.
So they can definitely find me on Instagram. I have two Instagram pages. One of them is called Naučimo švedski engleski, literally learn Swedish English. If you are coming from the Balkan region, I'm your person. You want to learn Swedish? I'm your person. And then recently this summer, from support from my followers and my students and my friends, I started another Instagram profile which is called Szwedzki svaki dan, Swedish every day. And there we are making a little online dictionary, Swedish Serbian. So every single day I post one Swedish word with explanations, with definitions, pronunciations. So I'm trying to make a little digital Instagram vocabulary dictionary, I can say. So if you guys are watching this and you want to know more, that's where you can find me and contact me always for music as well.
Yeah, that's where maybe you should start a third page about recommending music. I'm not joking. I think you should because there's definitely a lot of extra things that you can learn from it. Like
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, I did post actually, not to take too much of your time, I did post recently one reel about a Swedish song, and the singer actually liked it and contacted me, and she was like, great job. So I think you might be onto something.
Wow. Your journey as a music manager will start from here.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. 2026, I'm ready.
Yes. New Year's resolutions, at least. I mean, people, this
Exactly.
video will come out definitely after 2026. So,
In
but
2020.
it's in 2026. I'm not saying like it's 2027, but a lot later. So, but again, thank you so much for joining to this episode of the Connected by Language podcast. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe. It's free. You can always change your mind. There's no like you don't have to be locked into a contract. Don't worry. You can just press the button and you're okay. And if you're on Spotify, you can give us a follow. And hey, have you started learning Swedish? I think you should. And if you are, I would love to know it in the comments below. So, this has been another great episode of the Connected by Language podcast. I've been your host, Michele, joined by my co-host,
Michelle.
and I guess who wonders what is our next language that we're gonna cover? I'm pretty excited about the next one. What about you?
Me too.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see you in the next episode then.
See you then.